worried. Yeah, not conclusive for sure.
It's like saying when there's a non-zero probability that an asteroid is going to hit, you should probably be worried about that. Anything above zero in physics is not a good indicator.
Bro, the thing that I'm most worried about, honestly, is the information sphere and how fucking billionaires are going to leverage AI to fucking destroy shit. But that's just me. I'm firmly in Eliezer's camp, Kyle. 100%.
Not wrong. It's also not right.
I kind of get what you're saying. Like, there's a little bit more to it. Okay, that's fine. I don't need to necessarily get into weeds.
Definitionally, it's very simple. The price of a thing in a properly functioning market is equivalent to the price people in the marketplace would be willing to pay for it.
Okay, so this is this.
Now, if you want to move into the should be willing to pay for it, then you get into things like past pricing, earning per share, a bunch of other things if you want to estimate what that price is supposed to be. But the literal definition of pricing in a market is the answer, the price is what someone is willing to pay for it in a perfectly liquid transaction, I believe. So in other words, a transaction that doesn't have anything slowing it down.
So this is kind of what I understand. Like, can you tell me if I'm wrong? So you have an IPO, which means you're just selling those shares for the first time. The company decides what that share is worth, right? Like, we're going to sell 100 shares, and I'm going to value each share at $3,000. I'm sorry, I'm going to have all the shares are worth $3,000. So every share.
They set what's called the par price.
Yeah.
And then what you see is when it actually gets released to the market, usually there's a substantial gain or drop within the first couple of trades.
Cool. So that $30 or that $3,000 that goes to the company, that's all capital they're allowed to use, correct?
Well, I mean, a portion of it's going to the financial advisory firm that's helping them put it together, to lawyers like Mick said, but some net amount off of that $30 per share is going to be capital that goes to either the company or the shareholders that are selling out some of their stake.
Okay, so the company is issuing the shares, and the par value is like their actual amount, right? Like 10 cents, right? Nothing. And that's just like to replace the paper. But then the value of the share is they make a deal with a bank. There's a middleman. And he says, you know what? I agree. I'm going to finance this IPO based on the belief that you'll get like X amount. And that's why they want like the high valuation from the independent banker financial advisor. Once they get that, then the financial advisor together with the company issues the public offering and the public gets their vote. And then that's when it looks just like any other market.
Yeah, okay. And then once the IPO happens and the shares are out there, right, I decide whether to hold them. So to put them back on the market, and I get if I sell a share, right?
Yeah, once it's on the market, it's literally like a stick of gum. It's like $1. It's in circulation, and you can trade it freely with people around. It's just under a regulated system that like pulls all these different organizational structures into one regulated system, and then now you can trade a stock for dollars and go through a dozen different companies all in a day.
Okay, so now the vast difference on the market of on Bitcoin is that they have a registry that isn't done through traditional means, right? They have a registry that's done through the what is it called?
You've already got your head up your ass if you are trying to compare Bitcoin to stock.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not comparable in the sense of the way they do the registry, right?
Bitcoins are like closer to align to like an index, like a more complicated financial product that assumes the existence of other financial products. Like an index doesn't have any value. It just charts the value of other companies that all have value. And then that index itself makes its own like presentation, its own prospectus of how this moniker, this like final calculation is itself valuable. And thus the S&P is more valuable than any of the individual companies because of the aggregate value of this thing. Bitcoin is functioning under that kind of rubric. It's giving an argument for its own justification that what money is, how it is limited, and therefore it is valuable. And then IPO, let anyone use it or not, and it is used, and thus it is valuable.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with most of what Mixed just said, other than how it relates to Bitcoin. I would explain to you Bitcoin this way. Let's say you were a wizard, and as a wizard, you were able to create the new gold, and you were able to create 1 million units of this gold, and you put that gold on the market, and you convince people that this new gold, the Philipperium, is the new gold, and the market electronically, it creates a marketplace for Philipperium, and depending on the demand and the belief in the value of the demand, it drives more demand or less demand. When the demand is in balance, it drives the price up. I'm sorry, when the demand is in balance, the price stays the same. When the demand exceeds the supply, it drives the price up. And when the demand is below the supply, it drives the price down. But it's actually in its economic sense, it's a very simple, at least theoretically, a very simple thing. It's a replacement for essentially gold, or I would say currency, but currency is a way more complicated instrument to begin with. But the best way to think of it is as a fixed number of units of an alternative for gold called Philipperium, and there is a market that trades Philipperium, and the demand drives the price going up or going down.
Yep. I cannot imagine putting millions of dollars into it. Exactly. How much money you got in Bitcoin?
Oh, nothing. Just like a few bucks. Just to chart it. To watch it as it grows, right? I see it more valuable in terms of the information it provides, less how much it's actually valuable, right? It's like holding a bar of gold. Like, okay, you've got it.
I get exactly. I get.
But how good is that?
Somebody's gonna want it.
Yeah, and the reason, you got to get into the reasons the Bitcoin world convinced mostly very young new investors that it's valuable, and some of them are real, right? With gold, you have to traditionally you have to actually store the currency, or someone else is storing the currency, and that storage comes with a cost, right? Philipperium doesn't have that, right? It's all electronic. Gold requires security, right? Because someone could steal the gold. Supposedly, the cryptocurrency is immune from that, though we've seen that there have been times where people lose access to their cryptocurrency, or we've even seen exchanges that where malfeasance actually had currency disappearing. But the theory is that these sorts of things are impossible with Bitcoin. It turns out the only real differentiator is the capacity to use Bitcoin for gray market and black market transactions. In my estimation, that's the only natural marketplace that Bitcoin actually has real advantages over other options. Which is why I've said since the beginning, I think ultimately Bitcoin will end up being around, 10,000. The value is far less than what it is and what it was.
Yeah. Well, I always thought it was funny that, it was self-regulated, and I thought that was like when I used to talk to these people that related to Bitcoin, it's self-regulated, the government's not going to be involved, they can't manipulate the market, it's worth what it's really worth, this and that, and now, 5 years later, it's exactly the opposite, it seems like. Very much regulated, the government's very much involved.
It just shows the naivete of those who embrace Bitcoin for that reason, right? Yeah, you can have this ecosystem and this exchange that isn't subject to any state's laws. That's doable. But anytime you want to convert real currency or real securities into Bitcoin, you have to do that on an exchange that is subject to various states' laws, right? So to the extent you already have money in that sphere, like Iran has a bunch of money in that sphere, they could do all sorts of black market, they could buy nukes, they could do whatever they want, in theory, because there are exchanges in countries that don't regulate them at all. But anytime you want to take U.S. currency and put it into that entire ecosystem, you either need to somehow get that currency to someplace, I'll make up like Madagascar, who theoretically doesn't regulate them at all. Either you got to transport pallets of cash to Madagascar in order to get it into that exchange. You're going to leave a signature to try to get your money into Bitcoin in order to do black market transactions. And also the taxation piece, obviously the United States and most countries want to be able to tax gains on this sort of, can't really call it a security, but this sort of investment.
Yeah. It's funny, there's part of the regulatory market that actually makes it very secure for me.
As part of what?
The regulatory market that secures my finances, right?
It does a pretty reasonable job of securing your finances. Not your finances, but your investments.
My investments, right? Yeah.
That's part of the reason so much capital is driven to the United States, because both our self-regulatory elements and our governmentally regulated elements function pretty harmoniously and tend to minimize malfeasance.
I also think it gives you more visibility to information that could and more standardization of information.
Well, that's not an also, that's a because, Yakov.
Yeah,
right?
because of the regulations.
What you're talking about is the nature of the regulations that make us safer. Are things like the required,
right, exactly, yeah.
the required information in 10Qs and 10Ks.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Things like insider trading information, these things are required.
Yeah, I know. It's really nice to be able to. It's like you can't get away with much now. Just like we were talking about yesterday with the video cameras.
It turns out you can actually kidnap somebody's famous mom. Blowing my mind.
Of course, yeah.
Philip, you're doing it again. bringing up topics you don't want to talk about.
I just been not that. I mean, I was just more. I'm still blown away right now. Did you guys see they investigated somebody and they released them?
Yeah,
I don't actually give a shit about the topic.
That means he wasn't about.
Yeah. Well, or they don't have enough on it to get anywhere.
And I looked again. It's a pretty remote area where they were. I doubt there were cameras like you described.
Yeah, I mean, I hope the lady's okay, but
Yeah, me too.
I think we tend to fixate on things, and frankly, I tend to think a lot of the things we tend to fixate on tend to be things that are meant to distract us from other things.
What was the last kind of fixation story similar to this? I was trying to remember that last night.
I mean, besides Epstein?
No, like where something happened to somebody and then we were waiting for an outcome. Like Epstein, this is just an evolving clusterfuck, it's our shitstorm.
I mean, there is a lot of this shit that goes on that is distracting. I just don't know what else is in the news right now besides U.S. military continues to move a bunch of fucking assets to the Middle East right now.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff and I were looking on Flight Tracker the other day, and you could pretty much filter the U.S. Air Force planes. You could find all the C-17s and all the strato tankers. Can't they cloak themselves as some airline or whatever everyone else realized there's some airline, create an airline.
They just turn it off.
You're right, but why? So then why are they on? For all those planes that were there, why were they on?
Probably laws. There's certain areas where they can't go into those airspaces that way. What airspace?
Also, if you're Trump and you're negotiating with Iran, you want Iran to see that you've got 1,500 tankers a day landing in the Middle East.
The ones we noticed were over Azerbaijan, over Greece, flying over Central Europe on their way back to Lakenham. I think it's pronounced Lakenham, RAF. There was one over going straight down the Red Sea, I think. I assumed it was going to make a left turn over Saudi to go to one of the Gulf countries, but I never observed. I didn't watch it long enough. Where else? It was just all over the place. Essentially heading for all the ring countries around Iran.
I don't think you understand the depth of the United States military, how lethal we are.
I think I do have a good understanding of it.
Maybe. I don't think you do until you actually see it. You actually see it full force. When they do short forces, I was involved in a couple. It's fucking pretty weird, how fucking scary it can be if you were the other side of things. So, it's interesting when you think about the amount of bombs we can put in a place pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I got a taste for that when in Syria, just 2-3 years ago, when someone took pot shots, what I consider pot shots at one of that base we had in southern Syria, and they sent in B-1 bombers, they sent in F-15 Strike Eagles, they sent in, I want to say A-10s. They laid down so much ordnance in one tiny patch of ISIS area. There was nothing left standing, not even shrubs. It was just obliteration city. Obliteration!
I think don't quote me on this. I think they can self-sustain themselves for 90 days. About that, the whole I think the whole aircraft carriers for 90 days they don't need anything as a supplies for munitions or anything